LANDFIRE Total Fuel Change ArcGIS 10 Toolbar for Windows 2000, XP, and Windows 7. LANDFIRE fuels data, why we might want to change them. Acquiring the necessary data to run LFTFC. About LFTFC, current version 0.12. Setting the project directory, creating a starting project, and opening an existing project. Management units, creating a new management unit, and selecting an existing management unit. Fuel rules, setting the session name, selecting rules filter, reviewing, editing, and changing fuel rule sets, using the Ruleset Tab, the Compare Fuel Model tab, the Distribution Graph tab, and the Existing Vegetation Description tab. Fuel grids, creating an entire management unit or just the changed areas, the canopy options, and creating grids. Fuel color, coloring the fuel data so that they all have the same color palette. Deleting a management unit, and creating the fuel log. Many times we want to change or alter the fuel rules to include local expert input. This is easier with the tool because we can make our management unit smaller, so we can alter rules just within a specific area, rather than a full zone of the LANDFIRE data. LANDFIRE data was created to reflect the average fire season, but we may want to simulate an extreme fire condition. For example, you may have an area that was modeled as sparsely vegetated and dry, which LANDFIRE gave a non-burnable fuel model. But in this particular year, you had enough precipitation to grow fuel, so now you can add in a grass fuel model to your LANDFIRE fuel data. We may want to update for a recent disturbance activity. The current LANDFIRE version is 110, which is 2008. So we have another 3 years of activity that are not reflected in this current version of LANDFIRE. You may have a proposed planning area you want to analyze. Maybe it's a thinning unit you want to simulate, or an ongoing fire you want to alter the fuel for to match a fire perimeter or observed fire behavior. You can get the required data through the landfire.gov site or through the LFTFC toolbar. There are a couple good tutorials on the landfire.gov site that will walk you through how to acquire the data. You will need to download the existing vegetation type, the existing vegetation cover, the existing vegetation height, biophysical setting, disturbance, aspect, slope, and elevation. This is the LFTFC toolbar. The Add Management Unit button is grayed out and the Management Unit drop-down is empty. Under the LFTFC menu button, there are 2 functions available: Set Project Directory and About LFTFC. The other functions will not be available until we set the project directory. Now if we click on the About LFTFC menu button, this window pops up and it gives us information about the current version, which is 0.12 for ArcGIS 10, and some information about the developer. We don't have a project yet, so what we want to do is click on the LFTFC menu button and select Set Project Directory. This brings up a folder that says select a project folder or location for new project. We don't have a project yet and we want to create one. So I am going to put one in my D drive, which is where I keep all my program files. Select it and click OK. Then we get a new window that says Create Project. At the top it informs us that we're missing pieces of a project, which is okay because we haven't created one yet. We'll fix this by creating a new project called LFTFC Tutorial Video. Now we can populate this folder with the default rule set, which is LANDFIRE version 110, 2008. Now that we have created a project, when you look at the toolbar, you will notice that the Management Unit button is available. The Management Unit drop-down is populated. These are all of the management units for LANDFIRE version 110, 2008. The LFTFC menu button also has all the functions available. To set an existing project, select Set Project Directory. The existing project we are going to set is the project we just created, LFTFC Tutorial Video. Select the project folder and click OK. And now our existing project is ready to go. Now that we have a new project, it's a good idea to copy our data into the project folder. I will use Arc Catalog to do that. Navigate to where our project folder is, and we'll copy our data into the input folder. That way we'll have everything in our project in one place. I added EVT to our display to help us zoom in to a specific area. A management unit can be many different things. It's just an area of interest to you, where you want to work with the data. To create a management unit, we click on the Add Management Unit button. Now we can drag a rectangle of our area by holding down the left mouse button and releasing it when we get the square the right size. Now our Add Management Unit window comes up. You can see our red square of where we drew our area of interest. First, give it a name. You can have up to 13 characters in there. This is the extent of your spatial grid. To add your first required grid, existing vegetation type, double-click in the directory path area. A navigation window opens up. Go into your input folder where we copied our data to. Select EVT and add it. Now we will add EVC, EVH, BPS, and the disturbance grid. We are going to skip the wildcard option for now. It's a little more advanced. Aspect, slope, and elevation are optional. They aren't required to change the rule sets, but it's a good idea to include them anyway so that they get clipped to the size of your management unit. Up top, there is another option called Use Intersection of Required Grids. If all of your data are already clipped to the size you want, using the landfire.gov website or LFDAT or some other type of clipping option, then you can choose that option to maintain that extent size. Then the red square is not used for clipping. Now go down to the bottom and click Create Management Unit. It will change to Wait. You may have to wait for some time if it is a large management unit. It does or can take up to 10 to 15 minutes. Our management unit is now ready. If you look in the Management Unit drop-down box, you'll see our new Management Unit video tutorial. In the outline, I did not discuss these areas in yellow. If you want to learn more about these vegetation grids, you can look through the metadata that's attached to them when they download. This will give you an idea of how they're created and what goes into them. Now we will open the Fuel Rule window. In the upper left-hand corner, it tells you which management unit rules you are currently viewing. Next, we'll add a session name. The session name will be added to all the notes that we create, edit, and change. These are the select rule options. Currently, all the rules are selected. So if we have fire behavior fuel models, fuel characterization classification system, and fuel loading models all in one rule set, they will all be displayed at once because we have the all option selected. The current version of the tool, 0.12, only has the Anderson 13, Scottenbergen 40, and fire behavior predictive system models. FCCS and FLMs have not been added to the default rule set yet. This is the Fuel Ruleset tab. We can select our existing vegetation name and number from this drop-down box, which will affect what is displayed in our Fuel Ruleset box. Currently, we don't have any rules copied into this project. We'll do that later when we cover the copy rule function. But for now, everything has 9s in it, meaning no rules are selected. This is a list of all the EVTs that are in the management unit. Every time you change the EVT, the rule set box is updated to reflect the rules associated with it. Under range of cover is where the cover breaks for the rule would be displayed. Under range of height is where the height breaks for the rules are displayed. For each range of cover and height, a life form designator will be displayed: herbaceous, shrub, or tree. BPS is biophysical setting. We're not going to discuss wildcard, so we will shrink it by left-clicking it. We have Anderson 13, Scottenbergen 40, and the Canadian Fire Behavior Predictive System models, as well as Fuel Classification System and Fuel Loading models. Fuel Characterization Classification System and Fuel Loading models are not in the current default rule set, so we'll shrink those. We also have canopy cover, canopy height, canopy bulk density 13 and 40, canopy base height 13 and 40. We have 13 and 40 for both of them, so we can develop separate layers for each one because the 13 fuel models and the 40 fuel models react differently. That way, if you have 13 and 40 in your simulation, you can adjust the canopy layers separately. For now, we will not change any of the rules for canopy. Any rules added for canopy fuel will override how they are predicted, or the predicted value of canopy fuel. For now, let's shrink these down. If a rule is turned on, it affects how the grid is created. If a rule is turned off, it does not. This is the number of acres that the rule affects, and this is the percentage of the existing vegetation type that the rule affects. These rules only apply to whichever existing vegetation type you have selected. When you create rules, the rules cannot overlap. For example, if you created a rule that said from 10% to 40%, I want this fuel model, but from 20% to 30%, I want it to have a different fuel model. You can't have those overlapping. Rules can be additionally defined by a biophysical setting. If a rule has a biophysical setting, it can overlap other rules, but it is the only type that can overlap. There are some great publications out about how the surface fuel models are created, so I will not discuss those. The canopy guide portion of the rule tells the create grid function whether you want canopy fuel there or not. In some cases where you have really short trees, you might want to treat them as a shrub, in which case you would use a 0, which would give it no canopy fuel. Or if the life form is herbaceous or shrub, you wouldn't want it to have canopy fuel either, so it would also get a 0. If there's a 1, you would get the predicted canopy cover, canopy height, canopy base height, and bulk density. But if you give it a 2, you would get the predicted canopy cover, canopy height, an artificially high base height, and an artificially low bulk density. This can be useful for deciduous trees, things like that that you don't want to torch and crown in your simulations. The lower box is used for notes. That will be where if you select a rule, your notes will show up, how you changed them, edited them. You can type in your own notes in this box by just clicking in there and typing in whatever notes you want. If you double left click in the box, it'll add in a date and time stamp of when you did your edits or added notes. Currently there aren't any rules in this box, so there's just artificial numbers to tell you that there's nothing in here, and a red bar up top to tell you that there's nothing there and everything else is 0%. If you look at the pixels left behind, you can see that we have 36,152 pixels left behind. There are not any rules in here to capture these pixels and assign them fuel. After clicking Add Rule, this window appears. Let's create a rule that is turned on and has a range of cover from 10 to 100%, 0 to 50 meters in height. We're not going to add a biophysical setting to it. Let's select a Fuel Model 8 compact timber litter from the Anderson 13 fuel models. And we'll select a TL3 183 moderate load conifer litter from the Scottenbergen 40. We could put in one of the Canadian fuel models as well. Or a fuel characterization classification system. Or we could also add in a fuel loading model. In the canopy guide, we'll give it all the predicted canopy fuel, canopy height, canopy base height, and canopy bulk density. If we don't want to give it the predicted values, but we want to add it to the rule and specify our own, then we click Save Rule when we're finished. Now you can see our rule has been added to the rule set section for this existing vegetation type. You can see our range of cover in tree cover and range of height in tree height. Fuel Model 13's an 8, Fuel Model 40 is a TL3 183. We did not select a Canadian fuel model, so it has 4 9s, meaning no model selected. We gave a canopy guide of 1, all predicted canopy fuel. The rule is turned on, and it affects 8,040 acres, and it encompasses 100% of the EVT. First, select the rule you want to edit, then click Edit Rule. This is the same as the Add Rule window, except now the selected rule is populated in the window. Let's change the cover to 40% tree cover. And we will change the Anderson 13 from a Fuel Model 8 to a Fuel Model 9. We will also change the Scottenbergen 40 to a TL8 188 long needle litter. Now we're done editing, and we'll select Save Edits. Now you can see our rule is changed to reflect our edits. If we look at our status bar, we can see that now it is not all green. There's a red portion which reflects the percentage of the EVT that is not being affected by the rule. We're still missing 9,014 pixels, which is about 25% of the EVT. Our new rule only makes up 75%. So let's add another rule that encompasses the other 25% of the EVT. Fast forward through here, and now our second rule has been added. You can see now the last 25% of the EVT is accounted for, and pixels left behind equals 0. Early on I said that we don't want rules to overlap. As you can see, our rules are not overlapping. These two rules are broken out by 10 to 39% and 40 to 100%. All the tree height ranges are from 0 to 50 meters in both rules, so we're accounting for all the pixels. You can see I added a third rule now, and it does overlap the other two rules. The status bar turns red, and it says over 100%. To correct this, we could delete this rule, or maybe we added this rule to add a biophysical setting to clarify it. So to correct this and add a biophysical setting, I'm going to introduce a new way of editing, which is easier, but doesn't bring up the full window. If we want to edit a piece within the biophysical setting field, we will right-click it, and we get a pop-up menu of all the available values. So let's change this biophysical setting. Now the rule is updated. If you look at just the covers, you would think the rules are overlapping, but we can see it has a biophysical setting in there. So it gets recalculated, and the computer knows that it is not an overlapping value. Let's make a few more right-click changes. Let's delete these 3 rules. Select the first one in the list, hold down the Shift key, and now select the last one in the list. This will select all 3 rules. Then go up to the top and click Delete, and click Yes when it asks you if you want to delete them. The Copy Rule window opens. First, select the management unit you want to copy the rules from. And we will select the option to copy the whole management unit. Then we'll click Copy Rules and say yes, we want to copy all the rules from Zone 10 PNW version 110. Now you can see our EVT is populated with the rule set, and if we select a different EVT, you can see that the rules are also in the other EVTs as well. This is essentially the same thing as Joe Scott's Excel spreadsheet Compare Fuel Models for. You can display the rate of spread, flame length, or flame length and canopy base height in feet.